You know what's worse than seeing a beautiful woman and not knowing what to say? Wishing you'd said something, anything, 5 minutes after she's gone. As an older guy, you've probably accumulated more of these should have moments than you'd probably like to admit. Well, not anymore. Today, I am going to solve that problem by giving you the exact line that will get you into a conversation with a woman. So if you've ever struggled with how to break that proverbial ice with that attractive woman who's maybe 5, 10, even 20 years younger than you, I'm going to share my go-to all-time favorite line for getting into a fun, flirtatious conversation in any social situation.
Warning.
Now, I know there are going to be guys who just want to skip right to the line, and you can do that if you want. But real quick, let me explain why I'd very much discourage that. This isn't about memorizing a bunch of words like some kind of magic spell. You need to understand why you're saying the line and how to use it effectively. So if you want to get the most out of this, invest the time and watch the video to the end so you understand exactly how this works as well as how to follow it up. Hey, what's up? I am Rob, and in today's video, I am breaking one of my own rules. Now, I'm usually pretty reluctant to devote an entire video to one word-by-word line, but when it comes to those first crucial seconds of an interaction, I make an exception, since it can be the difference between starting a conversation or slinking away and then kicking yourself later. So, in that respect, any line is better than silence. Literally saying anything gives you more of a chance than you just putting your head down and letting the moment pass you by. But take it from a guy who's tried saying just about everything to start a conversation with a woman. Some opening lines are better than others. But let's not overcomplicate it here. All a great opening line does is it gets you into a conversation and it gets it off on the right foot. Now, what I found works for an opening line is something that's strong and direct, but it doesn't go too far and resort to flattery or supplication. Also, a truly good line is polarizing. It's binary, meaning it either gets you into a flirty interaction or it doesn't. But there's no gray area here, right? There's no polite small talk or pointless conversation. You're not pretending to ask for help or feigning friendliness, ask her, oh, do you know what time it is? You're establishing an attractive flirty framework that a woman can either accept or she can opt out of. But if the conversation progresses, if she stays and continues the interaction, you can pretty safely assume that it's on because she's attracted to you. For most guys starting out, it's hard to understand why this is so important, but it really is win-win here. You're either getting yourself into a high-quality interaction or you're saving yourself time and, more importantly, you're burning away your ego, which is critical for long-term success. Let me explain this latter point because it's equally, if not more important than the flirty interaction, right? And here's why. Guys who are good with women aren't affected by criticism. They're not afraid of rejection. They have a thick skin. In other words, they don't let their pride, which better known as their ego, hold them back. I know it sounds almost paradoxical, but bulletproof confidence actually depends on burning away, your ego, your pride here. And for 99.9% of men, the only way you're going to do that is by taking a couple rejections on the chin. Probably taking a lot of rejections on the chin. I'm not saying this theoretically or because I read it in some book. I know this to be true because I lived it. I've taken more rejections than probably anyone. To every guy watching, I'll bet you a beer that I have been rejected by way more women than you have. And while I'm not going to sit here and pretend that any of those rejections were fun or I enjoyed them, what I can say with 100% certainty, with 100% conviction, is not only do I not regret any of them, I'd actually do them all over again, even the harshest, nastiest ones. In fact, I'd especially do those over. At the end of the day, think about it like this, right? The sum of my successful approaches gave me what I always wanted, which is beautiful women in my life. But the sum of my unsuccessful approaches gave me what I really needed, which is a bulletproof mindset where the only opinion that mattered to me was my own opinion of myself. Now that I've set the stage, we can move on to the line. So here it is. When you see a woman that you find attractive, a woman that you want to walk up and meet and flirt with, I want you to say, hey, I need to borrow you for a second. That's it. Write it down, memorize it, make it part of your go-to. Hey, I need to borrow you for a second. Nothing fancy, it's very simple, right? But it's so simple that no one is going to think that you're reciting pickup lines or that you're doing anything that's weird or unusual or unnatural. It's totally under the radar. But there's a lot of psychology and subtext baked into those 9 words. Understanding some of that psychology and that subtext is going to help you to use this simple line even more effectively. Also, I'm going to give you a roadmap for what to follow up with, what to say next. But let's start by quickly looking at the psychological underpinnings, which I'm going to summarize in 4 points that explain why this line works so well. So first, it's direct, yet it's not overly forward. You're not supplicating with compliments. You're not beating around the bush. It cuts straight through the noise. You're a man who knows what he wants. Second, it's polarizing. A great line, it doesn't leave you in this conversational limbo with polite small talk. She's either gonna opt in because there's a spark, or she's going to gracefully opt out. But there's no gray area here, which saves you a lot of precious time. The third reason that this line works is that it sets a high value frame. I need to borrow you subtly places you in the position of authority. Women respond to men who project confidence, not guys bending over backwards for approval. So you're setting a dominant but playful frame right from the start. And finally, the fourth reason is that it's simple and it's easy for you to remember. When you see that attractive girl, you're not gonna hesitate, you're not gonna freeze because it's so simple, it doesn't allow you to overthink anything. Once you see that attractive woman, you know exactly what to do, exactly what to say, so that you're ready to go at any moment. Also, this line sets up a conversational framework that's attractive because it creates instant intrigue. Most women are going to respond by asking you, for what? And that's precisely what you want. You've gotten her curious and engaged. Now, I'm going to explain exactly what to do next and how to handle basically whatever a woman throws at you. But first, I need to clarify something. Remember when I said that this line works every time? Now, I didn't mean that you're going to get every woman's number or even that every woman is going to flirt with you. What I meant is that a line like this works at its core purpose, which is getting a clear answer. If she's open to talking to you, she'll show interest in why you need to borrow her. If she's not interested, she's going to make that very clear too, which, like I said before, is actually a good thing. You see, most guys waste time in polite but pointless conversations, hoping that something is magically going to happen. But this is bad for several reasons. First, it's a waste of time. Second, it reinforces the wrong skills and the wrong mindsets. Because remember, the point of approaching a woman isn't to get her to talk to you. If you want to do that, go join Toastmasters. The point is to attract her. The point is to flirt with her. But probably the biggest reason is that trying to approach a woman in a roundabout way, it's cowardly, as well as it's just downright immature. With a line like this, you're either in a potentially flirtatious interaction or you move on. But there's no ambiguity here, right? This sort of directness is so crucial, especially for those older guys, because it subcommunicates confidence and experience. You're not trying to trick her into a conversation. You're not trying to hide your intentions. You're being upfront about your intent while maintaining a playful, masculine frame. All right, so now let's look at how to handle when a woman says something like, for what, or whatever she might say. As long as she doesn't outright dismiss you, I want you to interpret whatever she says, whatever comes out of her mouth after you ask to borrow her, as her teeing you up to display your personality. This will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Look at it as if she just threw you an alley-oop for you to slam home here. Now, for me, one way that I used to like to respond to this is, let's say I was approaching a girl at a bar, right? And I asked to borrow her for a second. If she said, for what, I might respond by saying, for a speed date. It's gonna be the best 33 seconds of your night. Now, usually saying something like that is all it takes to break the ice, where a woman is laughing and she's, just loosened up to the idea of talking to you. Now, look, none of what I said is logical or even really that interesting or even that funny, right? But I'm conveying to her that I'm fun. And that's what women are really looking to see from a guy that she just met. Don't believe what you see in movies. Women aren't looking for some kind of highbrow wit or this dazzling display of intelligence. Most women are simply looking for a guy to come along who's going going to make their day or their evening a bit more fun or entertaining, at least in those early moments of an interaction. Take it from the guy who's approached thousands of women. The bar is set very low for those opening moments. In fact, overgaming is actually a very common mistake that a lot of guys make here. A lot of guys make when they approach women. They think they need to come in and display this checklist of incredible, attractive qualities in the first 10 seconds. And that just causes them to fail in this spectacular fashion. Trust me, take the pressure off yourself. You don't need to be Voltaire in those opening moments. You just need to show her that you seem fun. And that fun is your value, right? The fun is the value that you're bringing. And if she thinks you could add value to her night or to her day, she's gonna be open to meeting you, to talking to you, to flirting with you. In fact, even when I respond with something a little bit more direct, like when she asks what I need to borrow for, sometimes I'd say, because you're adorable and I had to come over here and meet you. And that's a little bit more direct, so that creates a bit more tension. So once I say that, I usually follow up by saying, so that's why I'm gonna make you my girlfriend for the next hour. Now, let me be clear. I've never actually had a woman actually think I was seriously asking her to be my girlfriend. Obviously, this is said in a playful, sort of tongue-in-cheek way, and it's important not to get too hung up on the words here, but instead, look at what I'm communicating by saying that, right? Which is I'm communicating fun. I'm letting her see that I don't take myself too seriously, and that I'm, coming back to our favorite word here, that I'm fun. I keep emphasizing that word because that's all you should be focused on when you're approaching a woman. You're not approaching like you're James Bond or some other character that you've seen in a movie. You're simply approaching her like you're a guy who brings a fun energy, a guy who has a fun vibe. Because if you do that, you can say almost anything. You could follow up, I need to borrow you for a second, with almost anything. In fact, I need to take a moment to tell you about my all-time favorite response to a woman asking for what. And it wasn't even something that I actually said. It was something that actually one of my former students said. This happened back when I was in New York, back when I was going out and I was teaching live programs almost every other weekend, right? So this one night, I had this student that was like this muscular German guy who looked and he even sounded a lot like a young Arnold Schwarzenegger. So we were in a nightclub and I had young Arnold approach some girl and I told him to use the, hey, I need to borrow you for a second line. And the music was so loud that even though I was standing pretty close by, I couldn't hear what was actually being said. So they're kind of talking. And then I hear young Arnold scream, "We need to do it for love." It was one of those moments where I was left scratching my head, wondering if I just heard what I actually heard. Later on though, young Arnold, he gave me the play-by-play of what happened. So he told me that he followed the plan, he walked up to her, he asked to borrow her for a second, he got the predictable "for what" response, so he told her that they needed to go on a speed date. And the girl, she said something to him in response, but he couldn't really hear because this music was really loud, so he just cut her off and said, "Come on, we need to do it for love." And he put his hand out, and sure enough, the girl took his hand, and he whisked her off into a quieter part of the nightclub where they actually could hear each other and actually ended up having a really good conversation. Now, as you can imagine, young Arnold was a believer in the "hey, I need to borrow you for a second" line after that night. And once you give it a try, I guarantee you that you're gonna be a believer too. Just remember, the key is to walk up and bring that fun. And then, no matter what a woman says, make sure that you maintain a dominant but playful frame, because that's what's consistent when you walk up and you use such a dominant and playful opening line, like, "Hey, I need to borrow you for a second." As long as you don't suddenly, switch to supplicating or you start nervously backtracking and explaining yourself, you should be good to go. Now, as the conversation goes on, the most important thing to remember as an older guy who's bantering and flirting with a younger woman is maintaining an attractive conversational frame. That means adopting an authoritative frame that aligns with the tribal leader masculine archetype. Now, if you don't know what that is or you need to brush up on it, I actually made an entire video on this exact topic, and it's right here on YouTube. So what I highly recommend you do is you watch that video right now. I'm gonna put a link to it here so that you can go ahead, you can see the card, and you click right on it right now. Because to really understand how to flirt and banter with an attractive younger woman, you need to understand how to set the right frame as well as how to maintain it through the conversation. And now, if you've enjoyed today's video, hit that like button, drop a comment below, tell me what you learned from this video or when you plan to try this, or even tell me a story of you going out and trying it out for yourself. Maybe we'll get another Hall of Fame response like young Arnold. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more weekly videos that are gonna help you date the women that you actually want. Remember, don't let your ego stop you. Don't fear rejection. And the next time you see that hot, attractive, younger woman, that woman who catches your eye, remember, it's as simple as, hey, I need to borrow you for a second.